In the last episode, we took delivery of the Bentley and started to look at what problems it actually might have. And ultimately, what I was going to do to try and fix them. In today's episode, I'm going to look at the cost of fixing some of those faults, both with a main dealer, an independent, and also doing it yourself. I'm going to continue some work on the car and run some diagnostics to see if I can figure out exactly why this is off the road. And I've got a feeling we're going to find quite a few faults. Let's do this. Now, I'm confident that starting this car is going to trigger a fair amount of beeps. Feel free to guess how many there are, but there's probably going to be more than a 1990s dance track. Not to mention that the dashboard is actually lit up like a Christmas tree. We've got just about every warning light going on there that we could possibly have, so it's not a great start to the Bentley project. So the plan is to now pull the Bentley out into the beautiful, glorious sunshine and actually get this thing scanned and figure out what codes we get coming back. I've got a feeling there's going to be quite a few. That's assuming I can get this OBD port in. It's pretty tight under here. And I'm hoping that my diagnostic machine is up to the task. I've got my Autel diagnostic machine scanning this Bentley, and as you might imagine, there's going to be a lot of different modules and a lot of different control modules and sensors and all sorts of things for this to scan. So I've got no idea how long this will take to scan. These are, I guess, pretty complicated cars. So I've been on scanning this for quite a while and it's still going and it's finding more and more faults. I'm not sure if this is disconcerting or not, or if this is something that I just kind of expected. I think I probably expected it because it's been stood for so long, and we knew that there were a bunch of faults with it because that's why it's been stood. I guess it's just a case of waiting patiently and seeing what we get. So far, the TV tuner is the only thing that's passed with no fault. I'm not quite sure why that makes me laugh, but it does. So brilliant, the TV works. I don't know why I find that so funny, but I do. So we're still scanning away here right now, and we've still got quite a few modules to go through by the looks of it. Right, so it looks like we've actually gone through a full scan, and we've scanned all of these modules now. And unfortunately, I've got quite a few fault codes, which is not unusual. Well, now that we've actually completed the scan on the car, we've got a big bunch of faults that I'm just going to go through now. And then once we've cleared those, we're going to drive this around and see which faults come back. The CAN faults are probably because the batteries run really low on the car, and I guess that if we wipe those first, it should stop some of those stored faults coming back, I think, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of working this out as I go, so I'm going to clear those first and then we'll start looking at the other codes. A lot of the stored codes will be from the batteries dropping really low and ultimately having gone flat before replacing them with new batteries, so deleting a lot of these will likely mean that these never ever come back, and we shouldn't really have to worry about some of them. However, some of them for sure are going to be existing problems that do come back. Despite having a little bit of success with the scan, I did start to experience a bit of an intermittent problem with my Autel scanner, or with the car certainly, because it just kept losing connection to the car itself. For some reason it's just lost its connection twice, and I'm not quite sure why. So I started scanning, so I might have to try and figure out why it's done this. Not quite sure why it's done just that, but it's lost its connection, so I'm going to have to scan the whole thing again. So let's try and go back to the modules that we need to do and scan. Now I might as well scan actually everything again, so I'm going to use the auto scan function on this Autel MOT Pro. As I mentioned earlier, I think some of the stored codes are causing this window to still be a problem, maybe because the window has broken again. Whilst the scan's going on, I'll try and fix it, but ultimately wiping out that CAN gateway fault codes will probably help. And now that we've got this fully scanned and some of the codes cleared, we can finish off and then take this for a drive, keep the diagnostic plugged in and see what comes back. So far, no lights have come back on, which is a good sign. Apart from the petrol light, there's no fuel in. But the car's actually driving okay. It's still got some hesitation, and that's probably down to the fact that it needs that manifold replacing. So it's probably misreading some data, which is causing a little bit of that. It feels like a slight misfire, but I actually don't think it is. We've got no engine management lights on, and the car appears to be at a decent level, certainly a level that we can drive it. But now I want to get some prices for repairing the exhaust manifold and taking the engine out from both a main dealer and an independent, and look at some parts pricing. Emma. I have a 2007, I think it is, Bentley Continental GT. It's been off the road quite a while.
What we tend to do with things like this is just pre-authorise some diagnosis time with you, do a bit of diagnosis, work out what we're dealing with, and then give you an accurate quote. With a vehicle this age, it's a lower rate of £145 plus VAT per hour for labour.
Okay.
Usually say, you know, a couple of hours to get started, and then just go from there, really.
All right, I'll wait to hear back from you.
Yeah.
That's much appreciated.
Yeah, leave that with me. I'll come back to you shortly.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.
Okay, Dan, speak soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Maybe the worst case is leaving about £10 to £11,000.
Wow. Okay, that's quite expensive.
It's a big job. It's about, I'd say it's probably about 40 hours engine out and engine in, and 99 an hour, plus any of the components that you might require from there onwards.
So I've come to Flying Spares, which is a renowned Bentley parts specialist, and obviously I'm looking for some components for the Bentley Continental GT, starting with the front air suspension unit, the damper, and I'm looking for the driver's side, which is the right hand side. However, I've got a feeling that these are going to be quite expensive. Now, here we go. These are marked as genuine. There's a left-hand front spring. The right-hand one is showing as no longer available. But look at the price of that. Left-hand front spring for one spring, one absorber, should I say, is £2,336.03. Now there's some reconditioned aftermarket parts. Those reconditioned parts are still £1,170, and also a new air spring is £1,668.60. So whichever way you look at it, replacing the air suspension units on this Bentley is going to be very expensive. With the power of the internet, we've skipped forward a day, and the Bentley is back down on its haunches. So we know, before I even scan it, that that is still a major problem. And we're back to that leaking strut. And as we've just seen in the video, those struts are not the cheapest. But despite the fact that I found this Bentley unintentionally slammed to the deck this morning, it doesn't mean to say that it's over for that air system, because it actually inflated itself reasonably quickly again, and whilst the compressor's running, it seems to have enough air coming out of it to keep the car level. Now, Bentley didn't even want to tell me the price to take the engine out of this car. However, at £145 plus the VAT and 40 hours of work at a minimum, that's going to cost £6,960 just to remove the engine and put the manifold back in. And that's not including all of the other problems that this car's got that are also going to cost quite a lot of money too. The independent that I spoke to did give me an approximate price, and the minimum was £4,700. That's just for the labour. That excludes the price of the manifold. He said there was 40 hours of labour to take this engine out, to fix the manifold, and to put the engine back in. That, of course, does beg the question, is this car even repairable? Because those costs could easily spiral significantly. If we have to do the paint correction, repair the suspension, put new tyres on the car, refurbish the wheels, take the engine out, do the manifold, and assuming that this will actually paint correct in the first place and doesn't need paint. When you tot up the total of that, it's going to be a significant amount of money. So, should we keep the Bentley and fix it, or should this car go the journey? Let's see how many of those issues are still showing. And so I've got the Autel running again, and we're about halfway through scanning these modules, so let's let this do its job and we'll see what we come back with. We're quite as illuminated as we were before, but we have got a traction control light on, and we've got a warning about fuel, which we already know about, the key, which has got a low battery, which we have to obviously get a replacement battery for, and tellingly the level of the suspension. So we've still got those, and it doesn't mean to say that we're not going to get faults on this scan as well. Right, I'm interested in these level control faults. It's showing 2 faults here on level control, and that brings me to another worry, which is that this Autel MOT Pro can't drag all of the data from this Bentley. I think if I'd got Bentley's diagnostic equipment, we would be in with a better chance of getting that information. And all of these fault codes aside, we still have the problem of taking the engine out of this Bentley and all of the problems that might come when we actually try to do that. See straight away why this is an engine out job, because this W12 really is so tightly squeezed into this engine bay that there's really no room to manoeuvre anything and get anything in or out. So there is going to be no other solution than taking this engine out, because that manifold leaking causes me a lot of issues, because we know that we're going to break a bunch of other things when we take this engine out. So, having looked at some of the costs so far on this, we can see it's already starting to get expensive, and that's before we really know the total cost of the problems that might happen if we were to take the engine out of this. And I still have some doubts that my diagnostic equipment is giving me a full picture of every issue that this car has got. But unfortunately, we've run out of time for today's episode. If you're not yet subscribed, then hit the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell icon to get updates on all of the latest cars and events that are happening on the channel. The Bentley Continental will be back in an upcoming episode, and hopefully I'll have some more information and a decision about what to do with it and whether or not we've started work. I will see you in the next one.